Hi, my name is Wachin Emeremeka and I'm the founder of Kitovu. Kitovu creates market access and engenders produce traceability for African farmers by using a mix of web, mobile application and SMS gateway to link them to processors, produce buyers, input suppliers and other ecosystem stakeholders so as to tackle the problem of post-harvest losses and wastages. Uh, Kitovu started like an idea. It started like a question as to whether there was a way to ensure that there was a change in the status quo I discovered 2.5 years ago. 2.5 years ago, I happened to be serving as a core member in Oyo State, Nigeria, and encouraged by the NYSC Agro-Ally scheme, I went into farming while serving. Growing the crops was the easy part. Selling it was the much more complex problem. As at the time of sales, we discovered that middlemen were offering very reasonable prices for the crops. The only alternative was either to sell to them or to gamble and say you wanted to dry in the sun with all the rain, and the result will be post-harvest losses. As I began to make my inquiries, I realized that I was not alone. There were a lot of farmers who were facing even much more difficult challenges as regards what to do beyond harvest of crops. And so I began to ask questions. In the course of my inquiries, I met a farmer named Ajewole. Ajewole and his wife planted cassava. The week I met them, their children had been withdrawn from school because they didn't have money. Meanwhile, Ajewole had some hectares of cassava in his farm. But Ajewole had grown a variety of cassava that was not really well known and was not in demand by processors. Even the local processors didn't want it. He had grown a vitamin A fortified cassava and there was nobody in the value chain that was taking it up. So over 2 years and he still had this vitamin A cassava in the land, and there was no money to keep running the necessary things he needed to run in the house. And with time, most of these tubers will start becoming fibrous and unusable. And so I began to ask questions of different farmers, trying to find out what the solution was, how I could use cheap and emerging technology to solve some of these problems that plagued African farmers. In the course of my search, I realized that this issue was actually very widespread. Post-harvest losses and wastages is a huge problem. As high as 40% of everything that is produced in Nigeria waste annually. And I began to look for ways. I first of all looked at what was in place, and I realized that nothing was actually in place. And beyond tackling post-harvest losses, one of the reasons is the fact that farmers grow things that are not even useful. They just grow crops. You have processors, for instance, who process maize looking for vitamin A fortified maize, and then you have farmers growing just any variety of maize. Of course, there will be glut in the market, but the processors won't have what they want. So I set about doing my research, going back and forth to see, okay, how would this work? By the time I found out what I wanted to use, how to do a mix of apps and web solution, the next question was, what percentage of farmers had smartphones? I then went back to the drawing board and was able to design an SMS gateway that would link back to the online portal so as to be able to serve farmers who are in out-of-pocket locations in the society. And at the end of that search, the big question, when I pitched the idea back and forth to other people, the question they kept asking was, how are you going to make money? Farmers don't have money to pay for this solution. And then it looked as if everything was not going to be viable any longer. How would you make farmers who are looking for ways to survive, how would you make them pay for such a solution? And so I decided first not to think about what I was going to make, not to think about the profit, but to think about how to solve the problem first. I felt if I got the solution ready, then I can begin to ideate and change my business model and see how the project can be sustainable. And eventually, I figured it out. I and my team decided that we will give out Kitovu for free to farmers to drive widespread engagement and ensure that farmers everywhere can take advantage of this. They can access not just simply suppliers, they can be linked to research institutes. And when we have epidemics like as happened in Nigeria, when we had the disease that was locally called the tomato Ebola, you know, if there was an early warning system, it could have been curtailed and all that. And so we put all these things together and said, okay, we'll give this thing out to farmers, and then how we are going to make money will be through in-app adverts. We kept on tweaking our model, and as we go, we'll find better ways. But at the back of our heart and in our mind, in the mind of my team, the first thing is to solve farmers' problem. Every other thing is going to follow. Now, in the long run, you know, what we see that is currently happening, we envision a future where it doesn't matter whether you're a processor, a produce buyer. A time will come in Africa, if you need high quality produce that is traceable, you will just have to Kitovu it.